more from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Wendy's BOGO $1 deal is back at participating Wendy's. Buy a Dave's Single, Spicy Chicken Sandwich, 10-piece nugs, or medium frosty, and get another for $1. Double your deliciousness. Hurry, this BOGO deal won't last.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The last time we heard LeBron James talking about basketball, he said he wasn't sure if he wanted to play again. He said he had a lot to think about. That was the night the Lakers were swept by the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. LeBron did do a lot of thinking, and he came to the conclusion he still wants to play some ball. LeBron made it official Wednesday night at the ESPY Awards that he's coming back for a 21st season. He made the announcement after receiving an ESPY for Best Record-Breaking Moment. LeBron is one of only 6 players in NBA history to play 21 seasons. He joins Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Garnett, Robert Parrish, Kevin Willis, and Vince Carter. LeBron turns 39 in December. The 4-time NBA champ will earn $47 million next season in a Lakers uniform. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Live from Leimert Park, USA, I'm Tavis, Smiley. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you right now to download our app at KBLA 1580. Download the app and listen to us live anywhere in the world, but only if you download the app right now at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day of real time, check out the podcast of this program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places to get the podcast and listen at your leisure. Should you miss us any day in real time, but I am delighted to have you along live with us today for the next 3 hours. You can also watch the live stream of this program right now by tapping on the KBLA TV icon on our app or by going to our YouTube channel. And let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today. 2 timely conversations today as we commemorate the 10th anniversary of Black Lives Matter this weekend here in Leimert Park and across the nation. In our second hour, a conversation with Dr. Wendy Talley about understanding racial trauma, the mental and emotional injury of racism. And in our third hour,
my name is Sabrina Fulton. I'm from Miami, Florida. My occupation is public speaker, author, community activist, mother. I got involved with this movement because I lost my son, Trayvon Martin, on February 26, 2012. The reason why I do this movement and I feel like I have to do what I'm doing is because my son Trayvon is not here to speak for himself. So I speak for all the Trayvon Martins. I speak for my son. I speak for your son. I speak for America. I have to fight. I have to fight for the people that cannot fight for themselves.
The mother of Trayvon Martin, Sabrina Fulton, joins us today in Hour 3. But we commence today's program talking racial politics with Professor, Emmy-nominated documentary filmmaker, author, and radio host extraordinaire, Dr. Karsonya Kaye Whitehead. Kay, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm so happy to be back on with you.
Happy to have you back on. Thank you for the time. A lot to talk about in this hour, particularly as we mentioned a moment ago, as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of Black Lives Matter. We'll talk about that as we move through this hour. But I wanted to have you back on for a couple of reasons. One, because I wanted to just unpack what it means that BLM is turning 10. We'll do that, again, as we move through the hour. But I was reading my newspaper some days ago. Newspapers, plural. I'm going through a bunch of them every day, trying to stay on top of things, as do you every day, I'm sure. Going through my New York Times, and there I see this huge, beautiful picture of this black family in Baltimore. And the story is about affirmative action and how one particular family in Baltimore is navigating all the pieces, all the tentacles of affirmative action. I read the article and I say, OMG. This is Karsonya Kaye Whitehead's family in Baltimore. So the New York Times got a hold of you and your family and spent some time with you all really dissecting how one particular African-American family is navigating conversations around the issue of affirmative action. So before I get into what came out in that article, give me a sense of how that story came to be.
So I was actually being interviewed. They were just asking me to give a blurb. And first, let me just say thank you so much for inviting me here. Thank you for reaching out after you read the article. It was really exciting for my family to be featured. They were asking me for a quote, the New York Times. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, where does your family stand? I said, well, I have 2 college-educated young African-American sons I'm raising with my husband, and we all have different perspectives from the very, very far right to the far left, which is where I am. And they said, forget about the quote. We want to profile your family. To have one black family, to have this many perspectives, really gives a sense of how black folks all over the country are struggling. We all don't agree on what should happen with affirmative action.
Yeah. So as we all know, black folk are not a monolith, and it's worth reminding people that every now and then that we don't all think or move in the same way. But it is also interesting that in one particular family, you could have opinions about affirmative action that are that diverse. So let me just start by framing the conversation. There's you, there's your husband, there are your 2 sons, as you mentioned earlier. Give me a sense of, broadly speaking, of where everybody stands in the family on this issue, and we'll jump from there.
Okay, so I'm, of course, the most progressive.
Mm-hmm.
I am someone that clearly stands in the space as someone who has benefited from affirmative action. I was the first black person to attend the International Peace Studies Master's Program at the University of Notre Dame, and I know affirmative action had some say in that. I'm also the daughter of civil rights activists. I was taught my entire life the things we have fought for were put in place because we can't trust the racist system to do the right thing. We have to force it to do the right thing. My youngest son, who's a fencer, who's actually training for the Olympics, is on the far right. He's extremely conservative. and actually, they opened up the article with him. He believes that it should only be merit-based, that color should be removed. At 20 years old, we never told him how to think. I just think what we do with our children, Tavis, is that we give them the skills and the courage they need to be able to think and speak their truth. Mm-hmm. So I never correct them. But my whole thing is you have to be able to argue your opinion from the facts.
Yes.
Extrapolate your opinion from the facts. I don't want to know here how you feel. Go and do the research. So he is to the far right. My oldest son, who just graduated from Rhodes, who's an English major, he falls center of left. And so he is not as extreme in the progressive ideas I am, but he does believe that affirmative action needs to be in place. We cannot trust the system to do the right thing. And then my husband's a centrist. He's like, okay, there are parts of affirmative action I do like. I'm just wondering about the long-term impact and implications of it. So you can imagine what dinner time is like at our table as we fight through all of these issues, which is exciting to me because in my book, Letters to My Black Sons, where I talk about my sons as early as the age of 4, all I ever wanted them to do is to be able to stand up and argue their perspective and never shrink on that.
Yeah, you beat me to it. I can't imagine what dinners must be like in the Whitehead household. Okay, that gives us a frame. My friend Connie Rice was on yesterday, and she's always advising me, as this audience knows, to get the frame right. So now we understand the frame that we are in. I want to interrogate that frame when we come forward. Our guest is Kaye Whitehead out of Baltimore City. Right now, though, on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Watering Your Lawn During the Hottest Time of the Day and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
She's so smooth. So I'm interrupting my own shower to remind you to treat your skin like the queen she is with Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash, packed with Olay's highest level of vitamin B3 complex. It's so moisturizing that it will give you visibly smoother, head-turning skin in just 14 days. People wondering, how'd she get so smooth? Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash. Also, try Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion.
Yo, Biff, this one still needs to be vacuumed.
The service at Chuck's car detailing business is spotless. But new word-of-mouth recommendations leave him short of hands.
They don't have an appointment? Just get him in line behind the pickup truck. I'll stay for another couple hours and get it done tonight.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our hiring platform instantly connects you with quality candidates, and you can schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from the Indeed dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
Our guest is Dr. Karsonya Kaye Whitehead, just getting started in this hour talking racial politics as we prepare this week to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Black Lives Matter, a huge event here in Los Angeles. If you've been listening to this station, you have heard this, no doubt, many times. Black Lives Matter turns 10 this week, and so this weekend there's a huge People's Justice Festival in Leimert Park, adjacent to this studio, all day this Saturday, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., with performances and a children's village and giveaways and Skillshare and vendors and a healing justice space and all kinds of brilliant speakers, including our friend and brother, Dr. Cornel West, Green Party presidential candidate, that is, takes the stage at about 4:30. I'll be bringing him on. Dominique DePrima and yours truly are the main stage hosts for a good part of the day, and so it's my honor to bring Dr. West on the stage at about 4:30. Going to be a lot of people here from all across the country celebrating the various chapters, all descending upon L.A. this weekend to celebrate the 10th anniversary of BLM. Of course, that hashtag founded here in Los Angeles. And here we are a decade later, and the whole world knows that phrase, Black Lives Matter. So it's going to be a great day here in Los Angeles this weekend. I know there'll be other celebrations, commemorations around the country, but L.A. is the place to be this weekend for the People's Justice Festival all day this Saturday, again at Leimert Park, just across the street, down the street from where we sit right now talking to Kaye Whitehead. Kaye, again, we'll get to BLM a little bit later in this conversation, but let me continue on this line of conversation we're having about affirmative action and the uniquely different takes in your family. First of all, if I jump back into that, I love this, but how does a Negro from Baltimore end up being in fencing? That's what I want to know. But beyond everything else, how did this black man get into? I love it, but fencing?
Yes. I know my husband at one point took an acting class, and they were playing with swords, and he said then, this is years and years ago, he said, if I ever have a son, I'm going to get my son in fencing. My older son came along, and he's so adept at catching. He said, you know what, he's going to go in baseball. Mm-hmm. And then he started giving my youngest son sticks to play with and using them as swords. And so he's been fencing since he was 7. He's been to the Junior Olympics twice. He's ranked about 16th in the country. And he fences D1 as a fencer at Lafayette College. So he is amazing as a foil fencer. But I think foil fencing and, of course, thinking about all the issues as a black man in America, all of that is framing his perspective. I think which is fascinating to think about the ways in which our children are doing things that we never did or never even knew. I never even knew about fencing when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. And so when my son walks on the strip, I will tell you there's a certain amount of pride I have when he walks on the strip and he pulls off his helmet and his big dreadlocks fall everywhere. And I often think that this is what our ancestors meant when they talked about the hope and dream of the slave, that coming from enslaved people in South Carolina to you fencing on the strip at the Junior Olympics and knocking everybody out the way with the pride and strength in your back, standing up straight. To me, that's what it means to be able to push this whole thing forward.
This is getting rich. Okay, let me interrogate that. I got 2 or 3 things I want to throw at you in that regard. Let me start with this. I was in a conversation the other day. We kind of teed it up, and I really couldn't pivot too deeply into it, although I've had this conversation countless times in my career, as you have no doubt had in your career as well on WEAA, my favorite public station in Baltimore, and in your academic work. I know you've had these conversations. So we were tiptoeing around a conversation the other day. Again, I couldn't get into it as deeply as I wanted about integration and whether or not integration was good on balance for black folk. We were talking about that in light of a conversation about the Negro Leagues. This week was the All-Star game in Major League Baseball in Seattle. Yes. We were talking about the Negro Leagues and the impact, the undeniable impact the Negro Leagues still has, frankly, on Major League Baseball. That said, you can see how we're tiptoeing around a conversation about integration. I raise that with you now because of the story about your son. There's no way that this black man could have been even in fencing some years ago, right? Let me just ask whether 2 questions, and I'll get out of your way. I don't tend to ask 2 questions back to back, but you can handle it because you're a talk show host. Let me give you 2, and you take it. The first question is on balance, whether you think integration was good for us, number 1, and number 2, to the extent that your son's worldview and his exposure and the way he shows up in the world and the spaces that he's navigating clearly have some impact on the way he sees the world. And the way he sees the world is to not be a fan of affirmative action. Does that concern you? Those are my 2 questions. I'm shutting up.
Okay. So the first one, I tend to think deeply about what Dr. King said. There's this quote, of course, where he talked about perhaps we integrated into a burning house. Mm-hmm. And I know what Thurgood Marshall said. He was really conflicted that integration did not mean we would lose everything, but that there should be a coming together of both sides, not a closing down of everything we have to be folded into everything they have and be second-class citizens. So I struggle with integration, but I also know I work at a PWI, which some people call a predominantly white institution. I call it a persistently white institution, and that this is the space that I navigate and move very intentionally. I am HBCU born and bred, but I believe that someone's got to teach the children at the PWI. So who's going to help them to realize and recognize these issues that we're talking about? And 2, for my son, I guess both my sons, which is why it's so fascinating, because they had similar experiences. Both of them attended private schools. Mm-hmm. So they were, in many aspects, one of only a handful of young black boys at a private school and elementary school. They went to Calvert, which is completely persistently white. Mm-hmm. And so they had very few experiences with people of color. And then they went to Gilman, which is a private all-boys school in Baltimore City, that they've had these unique experiences. And then they're in, at least for my youngest, a predominantly white sport. Now, what we have done is we've made sure that we have this kind of group of families, of other black families. So they're like, you have to keep your roots. You have to stay connected. But here's the thing. Even though you know what it means to struggle, you know the history. I've been feeding you, history about our people since you were on my hip. I mean, I'm feeding you potatoes and salad and also talking about, Dr. King and Mary McLeod Bethune. So you know this from the ground up. But your job is to figure out, is this the best way for us to go forward? I am not worried about him because I would argue he was born and bred Black Lives Matter. I mean, 10 years ago, he was 10. He was marching with me. Everywhere I travel, we marched one time 18 miles coming down from Philly to take that document to D.C. So that was his bread and butter. The way he's thinking through it, is that the way he's going to end? I don't know. But I think it's fascinating to watch our children grow and ask difficult questions of other people and of themselves.
Yeah. I'm thinking now, this is getting good. I'm thinking now of the ways in which, and you'll recall this, it seems like just yesterday, the ways in which Black families were divided during the Hillary versus Barack campaign.
Yes. Yes.
That thing got vicious, man. I mean, it
got vicious. But it was also a generational piece.
Yes,
There was a religious piece where the church stood. Like, that was a really challenging time in our community.
There was. And so I raised that because in the end, and I have to remind Negroes now, no, we were not always down with Barack Obama. There was a point in time in which Hillary Clinton was beating him.
There was a point when we said,
that's right. We knew the Clintons.
We were all wearing our pantsuits talking about lining up with the Clintons.
That's right. We were all saying, I'm with her. I'm with her, right? Remember that? I'm with her.
Oh, my goodness.
So
yes, I've been there.
We did not know Barack Hussein Obama at the time. We knew the Clintons. We knew that Bill Clinton knew every word, chorus and verses of Lift Every Voice and Sing. Said. That's right. Toni Morrison called him the first Black president. so the Clintons had our vote, and Black folk always want to act like we always been down with Barack Obama. No, we were not. Let me just keep it real.
No, we were not.
Black people writ large, just remind you how this happened, because y'all want to lie to yourself. We did not, as a community writ large, get behind Barack Obama until the good white folk in Iowa gave him a victory.
Maybe he's viable.
That's exactly right. When the good white folk in Iowa said this Negro is viable, then we lined up.
It changed everything. And then here comes Jim Clyburn coming from South Carolina, said, you know what, wait a minute.
That's right.
Maybe we can make some strides here, because, Clyburn was definitely, he's along with my dad. My dad is moved back to South Carolina. He's his childhood friend.
Right.
They know they were standing with Hillary.
That's
they were standing with Bill.
That's right.
Despite everything that had happened to our community. So it was a vicious time. It was a generational time.
It was indeed. Now, why did I raise that? I raised that because I'm curious as to how, in a family where there are 4 disparate positions on affirmative action, y'all get along. How has your family not been divided the way other Black families were around Hillary and Barack?
That is a very good question. So in the last election, without going too far into it, but we all voted for different candidates in the last election.
Wow.
And so vastly different candidates in the last election. Because, as we have trained our children, your vote belongs to you.
Mm-hmm.
We don't vote as a block. When you step into that when you pull that curtain back, or in some cases in Baltimore, you go in the corner with your pencil and paper. In either case, the ballot belongs to you. And so we would sometimes have politics-free dinners where we would talk about other things. But when we started talking about politics and you lay Biden on the table and you lay Trump on the table and you start talking about progressive candidates, you start talking about Green Party candidates, it gets pretty vicious, because we have this rule at the dinner table that we introduce questions. You cannot use your phone. So if you have a fact, you need to go what book are you pulling that from? Go pull the book and bring it to the table. Go pull the article, but you can't use your phones. You're not going to rely on Google. So if you're saying you're supporting Trump or Biden, based upon what? Where is that coming from? What have they done? How did you get here? And what do you expect them to do based upon what they have said? This may be too. It's exciting.
Yeah, this may. Yeah. That's one word for it. Exciting.
But the reason why I say exciting though, but think about that.
Yeah.
Genius in our children. They're 22 and 20 at the time they were 18, 19. That kind of genius, that kind of brilliance. Isn't that what we want for our children, to be able to argue these issues? It'd be great if they voted just like me, but then I haven't done my job as a parent. I'm not trying to make a replica of myself. I'm trying to make you into your own person, and you can think figure it out on your path, just like I had to figure it out on my path.
Yeah. How do you resist, though, this notion that many older, let me rephrase that, many chronologically gifted African Americans have this notion these young folk don't know nothing. They don't know nothing. They owe a debt that they can never repay, and they just don't know nothing, and that's how they end up being against corrective programs like affirmative action.
Because it's the same argument that I've heard against me, right? Yeah. So, I've been taught my whole life that there's a debt I can't pay, that I have to spend my life paying it forward. I think I just want to throw in here, as you know, I'm a pastor's kid. Mm-hmm. So this notion of responsibility as a PK, of what does it mean to never be able to pay? Like, there are two debts I can never pay. Mm-hmm. I can never pay the blood debt as a Christian, and I can never pay the debt that my ancestors
you preaching
did.
now. You preaching now,
so,
yeah.
But that's been the frame of my whole life.
Yeah.
And so I taught my sons both that as an and both, right? So there is a debt you have to pay, but there's also a piece of it that you have to carve out for yourself. Mm-hmm. What does that look like? When you're saying, I am not doing this just because I'm falling in line. Sometimes falling in line means I have to make that break. Now, again, we're talking about a 20-year-old who you would love, by the way. He's funny, mm-hmm. he's brilliant, he's amazing. And, he's been in tons of interviews, but he's figuring it out. And I tell him, I said, it's okay to figure it out. Now, you might be surprised when you turn 30 that the views you had at 20 are not the ones you have now.
Oh, yes.
Or maybe not, right? Mm-hmm. So some people, you just become more of yourself. I said, but the person I was at 21 talking about burning it all down is not the person talking about 401ks today and like trying to get my last will and testament together so it's not written on a napkin stuffed in a couch, right? So it's not the same person, but you begin to grow up, and part of the debt you begin to owe is a debt towards your mortgage and your car loan. Like, it just begins to shift if you have the blessing to be able to grow and become chronologically gifted in this society, because not everyone gets that blessing to be able to struggle with things as you get older.
No, I heard that subtle reference to the Queen of Soul, and don't get me started talking about Aretha. She was my friend, and I love her dearly. But that drama this week about that will, good Lord, I just.
But you know what? It made me go pull out my will. I said, let me make sure my stuff is in order and not in my couch, because that's not how we should roll this people.
No,
that's just my opinion.
Unless you, in case you didn't hear this story, there was a case this weekend that was decided about the will of the late great Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Good. There were two pieces of paper that she'd written on. One they found under the couch. And and there was a court case. The family's been fighting since she passed away a few years ago, 5 years ago now, I guess, about which will would be enforced, and both were written on paper, and a bunch of drama. And so I love the Queen of Soul. I miss her dearly, but don't be like Aretha, and don't be like my friend Prince. Get your will and testament together.
Get in order.
Yeah, so your family doesn't.
I mean, that's a show we should do at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we need to talk about how we can get, but it's also a way of how do you plan for generational wealth, and part of our conversation, generational knowledge. Like, it's two things. I always tell my sons, silver and gold have I none.
That's it.
I cannot give you that. But what I can give you is a strong name for you to stand on, and things I can provide through my will and my testament, which is everything down to, you don't have to ever worry, well, who did mama want to have this? Fine, it's going to be in the will.
Yeah.
Check the footnotes.
No,
it's there.
You said something a moment ago. You said actually three things that I want this conversation again. I'm just following you. It's going everywhere, and I love it. I was in a conversation the other day. I'm a PK as well, as you may recall. And I was in a conversation the other day about the ways in which in this country right now, too many fellow citizens are putting the flag above the cross. Putting the flag above the cross. I want to interrogate that with you, of all people, when we come forward. What does it mean to live in a nation where politically people have decided to put the flag above the cross? Let me just ask you right quick, though, Kay, before I go to news, traffic, and sports. And I'm getting too close. You can tell me. Since y'all are divided on affirmative action, did all four of y'all agree on Wes Moore as the black governor of Maryland?
No, that was another discussion. Wow. We got to talk about that as well.
Okay, hold that thought. I thought the first brother governor might get all four of y'all on the same page, if not affirmative action. Okay, a great deal more to unpack when we come forward, I guess. Dr. Karsonya Kaye Whitehead, Emmy-nominated filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, brilliant professor, author, and the best host in the city of Baltimore. She hosts Today with Dr. K on WEAA 88.9 FM, but right now she's on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A Pennsylvania grand jury has found the Pittsburgh Tree of Life synagogue shooter is eligible for the death penalty. Robert Bowers was convicted last month of killing 11 people in the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in U.S. history in 2018. The government wants the death penalty for Bowers, and now the jury will hear evidence to decide if Bowers will be sentenced to death or life in prison. Digging gets underway in Oklahoma today as part of a search for remains connected to the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Archaeologists are performing tests near a cemetery looking for DNA as a way to guide crews towards their next excavation site. Newspaper articles from that time suggest there are possible mass graves in several areas around the city. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Royal Heights, it's a bit of a boil over on that north side of the 5 as you get towards that 10. We have a crash onto the right shoulder. We're busy from Olympic. Looks like at West LA, it's a wreck on the 405 south at Santa Monica Boulevard, adding to a tough drive. That's onto the right shoulder. We do have that tie up still for the 405 south right around Getty. This is going to be the Sepulveda, Montana overpass near Bel Air Crest. Onto the right shoulder there, but a slow drive as far back as Roscoe. Arcadia, 210 west at Santa Anita Avenue, right to the right side here with a tough commute from at least the 57 freeway.
Wendy's BOGO $1 deal is back at participating Wendy's. Buy a Dave single, spicy chicken sandwich, 10-piece nugs, or medium frosty, and get another for $1. Double your deliciousness. Hurry, this BOGO deal won't last.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The last time we heard LeBron James talking about basketball, he said he wasn't sure if he wanted to play again. He said he had a lot to think about. That was the night the Lakers were swept by the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. LeBron did do a lot of thinking, and he came to the conclusion he still wants to play some ball. LeBron made it official Wednesday night at the ESPY Awards that he's coming back for a 21st season. He made the announcement after receiving an ESPY for best record-breaking moment. LeBron is one of only 6 players in NBA history to play 21 seasons. He joins Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Garnett, Robert Parrish, Kevin Willis, and Vince Carter. LeBron turns 39 in December. The 4-time NBA champ will earn $47 million next season in a Lakers uniform. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and they're putting their money where their mouth is at. So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community. And, you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase and, give them, another look if I go to another institution. I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right. Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
As we go a little something like this.
Hey, it is me, D.L. Hughley, and I am thrilled to be heard weekdays in my hometown on KBLA Talk 1580. So check out the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. We got a whole lot to talk about, let me tell you. That's for the real.
Hey LA, are you feeling the heat? LADWP has rebates up to $225 on new air conditioners to help you beat the heat and save money. Plus, you can sign up for Level Pay to get predictable monthly bills for easy budgeting. Stay cool. Visit LADWP.com/COOL-LA. That's LADWP.com/COOL-LA.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
All's my life I has to fight. All's my life I hard times like yeah, bad trips like yeah. Nazareth, I'm f***ed up, homie, you f***ed up, but if God got us, then we gon' be alright.
We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright.
I'm Tavis, Smiley. This is KBLA Talk 1580. I think we're going to be all right. Glad to have you tuned in today. Our guest in this hour is Dr. Karsonya Kaye Whitehead, brilliant talk show host in Baltimore City, Emmy-nominated documentary filmmaker, professor, author, brilliant all-around sister, mother of 2 boys, wife. And we've been talking about her family. Some days ago, her family was featured in a major story in the New York Times. This black family of 4 that has disparate views on the issue of affirmative action. And now we learned moments ago before News Traffic and Sports, it's not just affirmative action. They couldn't all agree on the first black governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. Tell me about that, Kay.
So I will say we all agree now,
Yeah.
but at the time, and of course, Wes Moore, I'm a major supporter of his work.
Sure.
Wes Moore is progressive,
Mm-hmm.
and if you are someone who doesn't believe in a progressive stance in terms of policies for Baltimore City, that's where it is. We have different ideas on what should happen. We know that Baltimore City is a contested place, that crime is an issue here, and we have different versions of how the crime should be dealt with in this city. And Wes Moore, as a progressive, stands with the progressive politics who believe that we need to talk about how do we help young people from the ground up, how do we do more work where we do intervention work, where we have folks out on the streets trying to stop crime. That is very different than, you need to arrest those that are criminals no matter the age. And so it became a huge story. It was very interesting. And I think that every time there is a candidate running, it's the same type of interrogation at our table.
Yeah.
Now that they're older, like we go through and we look at the policies, we look at the plans, we ask questions of each other, and then we go in and of course we make our own decisions when we vote. But now that Wes Moore's in office and is doing quite an amazing job, I don't know if that's convinced everyone, but I'm convinced. But I was convinced, of course, before he got elected.
Yeah, indeed you were, as were many others. That's why he is the governor of Maryland.
Yes, he is.
Let me go back to what I teed up a moment ago, again, before News, Traffic, and Sports. And this thought came to me based upon a number of things that you said earlier. On our tender, on our money, we know the phrase, "In God we trust." So we profess that as we pass currency around all the time. In God we trust. And yet, if I had the time, I could with you. I don't need to. It's a smart audience. I think they get it as well. I'm trying to juxtapose this notion that on our currency, we continue to advance this notion, in God we trust. And yet, in so many ways, politically, I see too many fellow citizens putting, as I would put it, the flag above the cross. How does that resonate with you?
So look historically at America, and the notion that we have this phrase on our money. I'm thinking of greasy money that's being used to buy enslaved people, to purchase weapons that have been used to destroy people, to keep people oppressed. Like, in God We Trust is also just the center of a capitalist nation that believes in oppression. We know that the religion is mocked here. Like, this notion that we are a Christian nation is something that is mocked. So when people hold up the flag above the cross, I think what they're doing is they're taking the flag and they're making the flag into their cross. It is that's what they worship. It is not the cross, in the way that if you are someone that comes out of the Christian faith and the belief, you understand what it means to die to the cross, right? To be able to say that I need to do things for the good of others and not for the center of myself. That belief, doing it for myself, doing it in the name of money, doing it in the name of white supremacy, means you've taken that red, white, and blue flag and you've just shaped it as a cross. You want to hide behind religion as a way of getting your white supremacist views across, which is historically what this nation has been about. We go all the way back to slavery.
That takes me straight back to affirmative action. I want to go back to that just for a second here, and then we'll move forward and talk about Black Lives Matter. But I want to go back to affirmative action because if we, again, put the cross above the flag and not the other way around, then one would think that we live in a nation where everybody is treated as equal. We know that's a mockery.
Right.
We know that's a joke.
Right.
But I want to quote from a piece that our friend and brother Elie Mystal wrote recently this week in The Nation magazine. You know Elie, brilliant brother.
Yes.
When it comes to these Supreme Court issues. And here's what Elie Mystal had to wrote in The Nation this week about affirmative action. And his headline essentially says that the white media is missing this. Here's the one thing, at least one thing, that the white mainstream media is missing about the affirmative action debate. So listen carefully. Quoting from Elie Mystal of The Nation magazine. As a result, the real upshot of the affirmative action ruling is this. Colleges and universities must now punish black applicants by decreasing the enrollment of black students by any means necessary. That's because the only way universities can show compliance with Chief Justice Roberts' new rules is to show that they have decreased the number of black kids they let into school. Anything less than that will likely trigger litigation from the white supremacists who have already promised to hunt down schools that admit too many black people, as determined by their own white makes right accounting system. Now, the point is pretty clear. It's not just that affirmative action is going to slow the process of black people getting accepted into colleges and universities. What Elie is arguing is that the number is going to have to decrease.
It's going to have to go down.
To show that we are compliant with the new law. And if those numbers do not go down, then these white supremacist organizations will advance more litigation to keep advancing this notion of a colorblind society. That's a particular and peculiar point that people have really not made, but Elie, I think, made it brilliantly, Kay.
Yes, he did. And I definitely agree. He's brilliant. He's been on my show a number of times. He is amazing. And I think that piece that you're talking about is a piece that I read as well. And I think that is the part that nobody wants to talk about. What exactly are we going to lose in the long run? What are schools going to lose? And what are they going to have to do in order to be in compliance? I also think that, just as an aside, I think this is an amazing power play by Judge Roberts, who I believe has felt this entire time that he's lost control of the court. And this is his power play moment. He has regained control of the court. The interesting thing with affirmative action, that the biggest group that actually benefited was white women.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest group that complained about affirmative action was white women. So, okay, so you are willing to burn it all down, even though you are benefiting from it. And my concern is, where are we going to make our stand? What can we do other than trying to pack the court? As I tell people, that's not going to happen. President Joe Biden is not going to make that decision. What can you do on the local levels to begin to support the type of governor you need to have in place, the type of local Senate you need to have in place to be able to stand against this? This is a battle that is not going to be over for a while, because I am not sure if the court is ever going to turn, at least in the next 20 years, to a point that they can go against this and and right this very egregious wrong.
Again, I continue to follow you, as I often do, always do. I had two women on this program a few weeks ago who host a very popular podcast called Dear White Women. That's the podcast, very popular, hosted by 2 females. And since you mentioned white women a moment ago and the issue of affirmative action, this is a loaded question, I warn you, but what is your take politically on the role of white women in our body politic right now?
So I think that there are 2 distinct parts, and I speak now as the president of the National Women's Studies Association, where as the largest academic organization in women and gender studies, we have a lot of white women members who are allies, who are willing to bend their privilege to stand sometimes in front of, because sometimes the battle is not our battle to fight. Yeah. And they have to be willing to make that battle. We also have this divide within the white community because there are a number of white women, and I mean, I won't just use the popular term Karen, but a number of white women who are committed to trying to remind Black people of what they believe their place is. And I say Black, I'm going to include brown people and indigenous people and people from all different communities, that there is a commitment to this. That reminds me of what a writer once said, who said, if a white woman had to choose between standing up for Black women and standing up for her white son, she will always choose her son, even if her son is going to put things in place that go against Black women and all women, because I want to make sure that my white son has everything he needs. White women right now, that is the weapon that we are fighting against. The white women who are convinced that in order for this society to survive, they have to stand with these conservative white men who are putting laws in place that impact them as well. Yeah. But they're willing to overlook that if it means it will impact us.
Yeah. In our third hour today, our final hour, we'll be talking to the mother of Trayvon Martin. Sabrina Fulton joins us live for the hour as we commemorate the 10th anniversary of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, as you well know, sure enough kicked into gear. After the murder of her son Trayvon in Florida. We'll be joined by her in our third hour today. And for the rest of this hour, when we come forward with Dr. Karsonya Kaye Whitehead, we will talk about, as she sees it, the legacy of BLM 10 years in, when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley, recipient of the prestigious Freedom of Speech Award at Talkers 2023. More of Tavis when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hollywood Walk of Fame stars in 2024. Stay tuned to find out who's in next year's class. I'm Aisha Cairo with your K-Black Minute News. A new group of 31 entertainment professionals across film, television, radio, recording, and sports entertainment will have their names etched into Hollywood's history in 2024. One of the most celebrated names on the list was the beloved Chadwick Boseman. Others for the class of 2024 in Hollywood Walk of Fame was this year's Oscar winner Michelle Yeoh in the motion picture category. Other notable names include Chris Pine, Gwen Stefani, Andre, Dr. Dre, Young, Otis Redding, Christina Ricci, Brandy Norwood, Harry Washington, and more. The dates for the star ceremonies have not yet been scheduled. To find out all 31 inductees, visit youtube.com/Walk of Fame.
To my hometown, my community. Some of you have known me my whole life. Do you notice anything different about the kids in the neighborhood? Ever paid attention? You might start with gifts, money, attention. These are signs. Child trafficking is happening right here in this town. So don't just watch through the window. Pay attention. Because the more we know, the more we'll all know to say no. Learn the signs to look for and how to help at no-to-say-no.com.
Have you heard about Lendistry? Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Whether financing is needed to increase working capital, acquire a business, purchase inventory and equipment, or refinance debt, Lendistry has a solution for you. Lending products range from from traditional business term loans and non-revolving lines of credit to SBA 7A loans and commercial real estate financing. Lendistry's pre-application process is simple and does not impact your credit score. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more and to get started with an application right from the website.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
As I mentioned earlier in this hour, this weekend we will commemorate the 10th anniversary of Black Lives Matter with the People's Justice Festival. All kinds of folk descending on L.A. this weekend. 12 to 6 p.m. in Leimert Park are adjacent to this studio. Performances, Children's Village, giveaways, Skillshare, vendors, healing justice space, a great deal more, including a number of brilliant speakers. Dr. Cornel West, Green Party presidential candidate, takes the stage at about 4:30. Dominique DePrima, yours truly, two of the hosts on the main stage this Saturday. So it should be a great day celebrating the 10th anniversary of Black Lives Matter. Every single day this week, we've had different guests on to share their thoughts about BLM at the first decade of their work and witness. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be joined by Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin, in our third hour today to get her take on losing her baby a decade ago and the work and witness of Black Lives Matter to bring that to the attention of the nation. And I think I want to start with this with UK talking about BLM. It is not lost on me. I was talking to Miles, my board op, used to work for a good friend of mine named Michael Baisden. And I remember Michael really just raising the flag about the Gen 6 back in the day when nobody really wanted to talk about those 6 persons. And I think about the role that Tom Joyner, I was on that show, of course, for a dozen years, Tom Joyner and so many other black media outlets played in raising this issue of Trayvon Martin. I was doing commentaries about it. I'm not the only one. There were many others. But had it not been for black media and Black Lives Matter raising our voices about the murder of Trayvon Martin, his name would not be a household name these days. Right. And so I want to start by giving you a chance to sort of sound off on the role that black media played in making sure that the country knew about Trayvon Martin, and then more broadly, your thoughts on BLM 10 years in.
Thank you for that. Black media, of course, is the place where I found out about Trayvon Martin. Going back 10 years, I used to listen to WEAA, which is, of course, now where I have my show for the last 6 years. But it was on WEAA, and they were talking about this case. And I could not understand why I didn't know anything about it. As a researcher, as someone who was raising black boys in this country, I'm like, why don't I know about this? What has happened? Why am I not more tuned in to what is happening with our people? I want to remind people this is before we would log on to Twitter to get the news or Facebook. I mean, Facebook that time we were taking pictures of food, right?
Yep.
Kind of giving very simple updates. People, because we have to remember how social media became an active part of movements through Black Lives Matter. It definitely changed how we use social media and how we understood social media. So it was a turning point for me because I worked specifically on black women's history at that moment, and thinking about Trayvon and listening to his mother and her cries and asking and begging for justice forced me to look at my own sons. Okay, what am I doing? If I cannot help co-create a world where my own sons can get home safely, similar to what Trayvon's mother has said, if I can't do this for my own son and for other sons that look like this, what exactly am I doing? And I changed my entire research. I mean, for me, that was the birth of the Black Mommy Activist, which is my handle. It was born out of that moment, and it was a commitment for my family that, and not only am I going to march for Black Lives Matter, my sons are going to march as well. So I was pulling them out of school and said, there's an education you need that's coming from the streets that you can't get in this classroom that should become part of the genome of who you are. Yeah. Like, this is what you need to do. So I think black media in that moment was just a stark reminder of why we have to be in control of shaping our own narrative. Yeah. Because when we are not, then we keep getting written out of the story.
Yeah. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Kaye Whitehead, I want to get her take on what Black Lives Matter has been able to accomplish over these 10 years. As I've said all this week, Their impact, to my mind, is undeniable. It is incontrovertible, and yet it is also controversial. But I want to get her take on what BLM has done in these first 10 years. We'll do that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Are you looking to steer your career in a new direction? Driving for Culver City Bus can be your ticket to a long-lasting career with excellent benefits and paid training. Culver City Bus is looking for customer service and safety-minded bus operators to join the growing team. Culver City Bus offers on-the-job training starting at $19.10 per hour, uniform allowance, and health benefits. Culver City Bus is a great employer. Let Culver City Bus connect you with an essential service job. If you enjoy driving, seek real opportunities for career advancement, and passionate about making a difference in the community, then you are invited to join the Culver City Bus team. Start your journey today by submitting an application at culvercity.org/jobs. For more info, visit culvercitybus.com or call live customer service operators at 310-253-6500.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, Whitehead, I close by asking, we got a few minutes left here, what do you make of what BLM has been able to accomplish over this first decade? What do you make of their journey as a decentralized organization?
Well, one of the things that I love about Black Lives Matter, and I think this is one of the major things of accomplishment, is that it taught us, those who were listening, that you don't need to have one central leader. Mm-hmm. That if the movement rests on the shoulders of leaders, when they go after that leader, as we have found historically, I don't have to remind people of King to X and the whole pathway of how they targeted and killed our leaders in the hopes of stopping the movement. And it did have the movement very disoriented and unorganized because you're reeling with the loss of that person. We found with Black Lives Matter, it was both leaderless and leaderful, right? Mm-hmm. It gave space to local leadership to step in because you were not fighting one centralized target. It was not just about, breaking down the wall of Jim Crow and looking to have, the executive branch enforce where they become law. It was about what are the different issues that you're dealing with on your local level. We're all dealing with this issue around the police, but we're dealing with lead here in Baltimore. You might be dealing with, an extreme case of poverty in Harlem. Whatever your issue was, local leadership began to get more actively involved. It made space for activists. It made space for people to organize outside of the university. Like I have seen the emergence of the last 10 years of local leaders who are not organizing through a college. They're organizing through their community center. Mm-hmm. They started organizing in their house, and then they went after grants to support the work they were doing. It has been a major shifter in our community, but it's also been a target, and that's the point you were making as well. Yeah. Black Lives Matter is extremely controversial, and I think that is because of the way the media has shaped the story, going back to the importance of black media, because in the hands of white media, Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, right? Mm-hmm. It's a danger and a threat to who we are. But if you look in the hands of black media, Black Lives Matter gave voice to those who have no voice. It made us focus on police brutality. It put the names of the people who have been killed in our face. We could not look away, except when it became inconvenient for some white communities. They felt that Black Lives Matter was a day job, that they can finish with it and it's been completed and I can move on to the next, quote, big movement in my pathway. And black folks, we understand that Black Lives Matter, the struggle to show the world that our lives, now this is a long struggle that stretches back through the arm of history to where we are now.
As I mentioned earlier, we will be joined by the mother of Trayvon Martin, Sabrina Fulton, in our third and final hour today. Let me thank now our friend, Dr. Karsonya Kaye Whitehead, again, a 3-time Emmy-nominated documentary filmmaker, author, award-winning radio host of Today with Dr. K on WEAA 88.9 FM in Baltimore, the mother of those 2 brilliant boys, one who's training for the Olympics as a fencer. I would love for this brother to make the Olympics, Kay.
Oh, well, you hopefully look for him in 2028. That's the goal. Yeah. 2028. So, and then you have to have a conversation with him. Let's just keep pulling for him and praying for him and make the space available.
Give me his name for those who want to read more about him. He's been all in the news media. Give me his name, his full name.
Yes, his name is Amir, A-M-I-R, Amir Elisha Whitehead. He's on the front cover of the Baltimore Sun Sports Edition. Again, we'll take a look at him, check his record, and see when he's fencing in your community. He'll be fencing in Italy in the spring. So if you're in Italy, you can see him there.
Proud mama, proud black mama. I love it. Kay, I'll talk to you again soon. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Hour 2 of Tavis Smiley after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A Pennsylvania grand jury has found the Pittsburgh Tree of Life synagogue shooter is eligible for the death penalty. Robert Bowers was convicted last month of killing 11 people in the deadliest